Okay, I hope we're on. Hi, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. This is Amy of the Mystic Rose Tarot. And depending on your screen, on my left to my right is T. Susan Chang. I am so happy to have her here as my guest. She is the author of 3 books, Tarot Correspondences, which came out in 2018, Ancient Secrets for Everyday Readers. Then this past year, New Year's Eve, 12/31/2020, she released 36 Secrets, which we're going to emphasize and discuss quite a bit about. And then last month, March of this year, Tarot Deciphered, Esoteric Views.
Decoding Esoteric Symbolism in Modern Tarot.
Okay, thank you. I ad-libbed my notes.
I always forget
it's just
the
like
subtitle myself.
They're long.
Yeah.
So we're going to focus today on the decans. And we're going to make this discussion very simple as we can. So for people who are exploring astrology and they want to influence it or bring it into their tarot, we'll talk as much as we can, time permitting, to break down the planetary rulerships, the positions of the signs when they're in each decan, and how they influence us, the tarot specifically. So this isn't going to be an astrologically influenced discussion. We're going to lean more towards the tarot. So if there's any questions that you have, I'd like to ask very kindly if you can wait, because I want Susie to carry this conversation for a little bit. And if you do have any any questions, please put them in capital letters. And if you want to address them to Susie, just put them in caps so she knows. And hopefully you can see the comments. Are you able to see them?
I see private chat and I see comments. So yes.
Okay. So you see the comments as they're coming in. Okay, perfect. So I want to make sure you see them and that it's not only me. Hello, Rohan. Thank you for joining. I appreciate you for coming in yesterday when I was doing my readings. G.A. Peach, welcome. Thank you so much for coming in. Thank you. She's helped me on my readings, so she moderates and see. You're on top of it, G.A. Peach. Thank you. And so let's go ahead and just get started. So my first question to you is, what are the decans and how do they relate to the tarot?
Yes. So the 36 decans are 36 slices of the sky. Everyone knows the 12 signs of the zodiac, and decans are simply divisions of each sign. So you divide each of the 12 signs into 3, you get 36 decans, each of which is 10 degrees of a 360-degree circle. So when we go through the decans, we sort of number them 1, 2, and 3, like Aries 1, 2, Aries 1, Aries 2, and Aries 3. And so in centuries ago, people worked with the decans in magical ways and believed that they had special powers and spirits associated with them, different characters, in the same way that the signs of the zodiac have different characters. But specifically when it comes to tarot, it's a special kind of arrangement that arose in early 1900s with the Golden Dawn. Because the Golden Dawn, what they did was they created all of this sort of large infrastructure of correspondences that went with the tarot, which is what I write about in Tarot Correspondences, and which is what we work with in these books, on Fortune's Wheelhouse, the podcast, etc. So they assigned astrological information to the cards. They assigned Kabbalistic information to the cards, elemental, numerological, lots and lots of things. So when you look at a tarot deck today, you will see that information embedded symbolically on there, if it is a deck that was influenced by the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, or the Thoth deck, which was also an outgrowth of the Golden Dawn some 30, 40 years later. So specifically with decans, since there are 36 of them, the Golden Dawn reasoned that there are 36 minor arcana if you don't count the courts or the aces.
Yes.
Right. So that's 2 through 10, 9 cards per each of the 4 suits. And each one of those can be assigned to a decan. So that gives you 36 cards, 36 decans. The very first one is the Two of Wands, which goes with Aries 1. And basically, all of the wands go with the fire signs, the 9 fiery decans. All of the cups go with the 9 watery decans. All of the swords go with the 9 airy decans. And all of the pentacles or discs go with the 9 earthy decans.
It sounds like it's complex, but I think once you apply it to your own sign and you make it personal, then you can start understanding. I remember when I came across the decan system through an old astrology book that I have. And I didn't even realize that that week, that decan time of the month that we were born, actually has a specific trait associated to it.
Yeah.
Like from my decan, I'm the third decan in Taurus. And so I think it's associated with determination and focus. It's like, yeah, that seems more like me. So there's more information into it.
Absolutely.
And then when you get your card of guidance, I think that third decan of pentacles or coins is the 7 of pentacles, if I'm correct for
That's
that.
right. Taurus 3 is the 7 of pentacles.
Yes. And so it's just, it opens things up so much more. So my excitement for discussing this is that I know you can apply all this information into the tarot. You need to break it down bit by bit. As I'm going through Susie's book, I told her I'm going through this astrologically by each month. So I believe I started this in Aquarius or Pisces. So that would put us into, I believe, I have to think, Susie. I think it's the 2, 3, and 4 of swords, if I'm correct.
Aquarius would be the 5, 6, and 7.
5, 6, and 7. And then that's right. Then Gemini is 8, 9, and 10 to close it out. So I think when you're working with a book like this, follow it astrologically. Follow it through the seasons, and it'll make so much sense. And this is a wonderful guide. I have to keep showing this because I have it by my bedside, and I think it's so important to really grow more from your tarot practice and apply some of these different aspects, these different personalities, traits that we can learn about the tarot.
And one thing that a lot of people are doing, because several people have kind of gone on this journey, the so-called decan walk, where you start at the beginning of the year and you kind of observe what happens over the course of each decan, and they're kind of following along in the book. And what you can do is, you can just feel free to write your own observations in the book, hack it with your own charts and tables and drawings and whatever it is you like, and it'll become kind of a talismanic work by the time you're at the end of the year. Personalize it.
And that's what you did. You put some of your personal experience into this book as an example to show, and we can see the journey. We can see what happened with Susie's life around the time that she started working with this. Not in great detail, but just certain key things that popped out. You pointed out here, we're going to talk a little bit about this decan that we're in right now, which is the 5 of Pentacles, which is the first decan to represent the sign of Taurus. Each decan, as Susie's mentioned, we have 0 to 10 degrees, 10 to 20, and 20 to 30 degrees. And one thing that I noticed is when doing this practice with the decans, and I don't know how you feel about this, I'd love to get your feedback. I feel the 10 to 20 degree position, placement of each astrological sign, I feel personally represents that sign in particular. So for instance, 10 to 20 degrees, the 6 of Pentacles, I feel has has that reference. The Six of Pentacles, I believe, is I don't have the Rider-Waite-Smith out with me. It's a card that shows work.
It shows a person giving out coins to people who need them. It's
Yes.
known as the Lord of Success. And as you can see, it's ruled by the moon, and it's a really lovely card. Fairly mercantile in this version,
Yes.
but
But that's what I've noticed. I've noticed that that second decan just seems to encompass what that sign is all about.
I think I've noticed that as well. The central one seems to be the heart, the essence of the sign.
Yes.
Mhm.
And then again, we have the planetary influences that can shapeshift the feeling and the characteristics of that card.
Absolutely.
The Six of Pentacles, I have my cheat sheet because there is a lot. I'm not gonna
Yes.
lie. This
Yes.
is a lot to learn. And that's how I can only remember is by going astrologically for each
Mhm.
month.
Mhm.
So with R6, let's see here. And don't help me. Yeah, Six of Coins, like you said, Moon in Taurus, and that represents May 1st to 10th.
Mhm.
When May 1st to the 10th. And then our second decan, I'm going to just jump ahead a little bit, in June, would be June 1st to 10th, and it's Mars in Gemini. Now, the planets that I'm just mentioning are in reference to the Golden Dawn astrological system. There are other decks that are out there where the planetary placement will be different. So I like to discuss that a little bit because that's something that
Mhm.
really throws me off. It's not, the planetary associations are not set. The only thing that doesn't change is the sign in each astrological month. But if you can give us some guidance.
Yes, absolutely. So the system that these decanic correspondences are based on is known as Chaldean order, and it's important to know in a way because it's something that we see throughout the tradition of Western astrology. Um, so I myself am not an astrologer, but when you kind of look at the works of um, alchemists and astrologers of the Renaissance and coming forward from that, you constantly see this order, which is Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon. And that order comes up over and over again. There is a theory that the world is at the center of these seven concentric spheres, of which Saturn is the farthest out and the moon is the closest to us. So you see this pattern repeat over and over. And if you look at the way the Golden Dawn assigned these correspondences, which is on page Roman numeral 14
I
of
know.
the book, you can kind of see that pattern repeating over and over as you go through the 36 decans. There are other systems, but if you use any deck that's based on the Rider-Waite-Smith or the Thoth deck, you're going to see symbolism that relates to this system. So this is, you can get along with just about any modern modern tarot deck that's not based on the Marseille or is not, or based on continental correspondences like,
Yes.
the Tower of the Holy Light, which you have. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I feel that probably the basis to understand the planetary associations is just more or less how you explained it.
Mhm.
Focus with the Golden Dawn system because that's what we see a majority of the influence. Um, Not all the tarot decks, but ones that are RWS, they follow that system. And if you
Right.
get into like the Unified Esoteric Tarot,
Mhm.
where here we're placed Earth in Taurus. Now we could say it's Venus in Taurus,
Mhm.
that's one aspect, but the creator of this deck, Attila Blaga, placed Earth in Taurus. And so we have the keywords here, so on and so forth. So, and then the Tarot of the Holy Light, for people who are wondering these cards are. This is for the Tarot of the Holy Light. Also, the decan placement is different because she follows a different way of interpreting these placements. We have Taurus, but it's in Saturn. And as you already saw, 5 of discs is placed with the unified esoteric as Earth in Taurus. And then we have Mercury in Taurus for the Golden Dawn system.
Right.
And this is the pagan netherworlds. So I'm just showing these cards very briefly just to show that there are variations.
Mhm.
And you can apply these planetary associations in so many different ways. But when you're learning, I feel it's work with what's best for you. Work with the planetary association that you feel in a reading speaks out to you more. That's
right. There's no right or wrong system, you know. It's just what you're able to build your own understanding of the cards from.
yeah. And that's hard for me because I want to learn all of these associations. That's why I have 3 primary decks, because they have different planetary associations.
Well, you know what's interesting is that even though the systems are different, when you read the book for Christine Payne Towler's Tarot of the Holy Light, you notice that the meanings are actually quite compatible and similar to Rider-Waite-Smith meanings. And in the same way that whether you use a sidereal or tropical zodiac in astrology, you're still going to get meanings that are legitimate and meaningful,
Yes.
to people in their own way, even though it's a completely different system.
Yes.
Magical that way.
Yeah, it is. The beauty with Christine's deck, Tarot of the Holy Light, is when you get the thick guidebook that she has, she takes a philosophical approach. That's how I'm interpreting these cards. She gives the basics. She doesn't give everything away, because it's like, how come she left information about certain symbols? Because she really doesn't focus on all the symbology. She focuses on the overall meaning and the planetary placements, its detriment, so on and so forth. But I like that because it leaves some space, it leaves it open for the reader to, okay, well, she didn't explain this, so how am I going to know what this means? Just read into the card. The thing that I love about creators and authors when it comes to decks and writing books, I don't want everything to be given away. Don't give away the secrets, These are guidebooks. They're just to make reference. And that's what I appreciate. Yeah, that's what I appreciate here. You don't give everything away. You just give the basics.
Well, it's really, everyone's relationship with their tarot deck is personal, My meanings are not going to be exactly the same as yours, but these are kind of a map for different things that you can add into your own lexicon so that, when you get stuck, well, here are some ideas that you might try for this card.
Yeah. What would be some exercises that you feel would be good for someone who is just wanting to explore the decans? So let's say they have a Doth system, a Doth influence deck, or RWS deck. What kind of exercises would you recommend for someone?
Well, I tell everyone that whatever they do, they should be doing card of the day no matter what.
Okay.
Just
Card of the
because
day.
card of the day for everything, because, we can sort of look at a card and try and come up with meaning for it day in and day out. But if you have a card of the day practice, the cards will tell you what they mean over time in subtle ways and in obvious ways. So to me, that's the foundation of every practice.
No, I agree. And that's why I'm doing the astrological decans the way that I am, because it spans 8 to 10 days, and you can utilize that energy for,
Yes. Yes, and I really do recommend that people, if you're doing a decan walk or wanting to work with the minors more closely, which I think is very rewarding. I really love the minor arcana, especially in Rider-Waite-Smith. I think it's good to try and learn whatever you can about the particular decan, but also create something around it, whether it's a piece of art or a piece of
Hmm.
poetry or a spell. Even 2-line spell is
Yeah.
fine, write about it, journal about it, whatever it is, and it will teach you as you go. You have 10 days. It's a huge amount of time
Yeah,
to do, to reflect on something,
I
and it's
agree.
very rewarding.
And when you practice the decans through the minor arcana, I will guarantee you, and I know Susan will probably agree with me as well, your relationship to the minor arcana will change immensely. You will
Yes.
see it way beyond this. You will look beyond it. You will see different faces of it, um, especially with the Tarot of the Holy Light. That has really opened it for me.
Yes, and I think that, the thing is that when we work with small cards, we bring everything that we've learned every time,
Yeah,
even if you're looking at a Marseille deck, and a lot of people will say a Marseille deck only has 5 coins on it. How do you read that? I don't think you can say that I shouldn't read it like a Rider-Waite-Smith deck at all, because the information is inside you. What you know about Five of Pentacles is what you know about Five of Pentacles, right?
yeah,
And even a spare card like this one has resonance with a lot of the historical meanings of the Five of Pentacles. For example, um, the it used to be that the Deccan commentators would say that this was a decan of geometry and plowing and sowing the land. So you can see that there's this sort of snow cover, and you can imagine a farmer waiting for spring to come so that they can plot out what they're going to do. And
yes.
it's also known as the Lord of Worry, because that's exactly what we do when we think about, this time of year and what we're looking ahead to grow. Um, and even when you look at the Rider-Waite-Smith version, which is dark, a lot of people don't like this card because it looks as though people are having trouble.
Yeah.
And you
This-
know,
yeah.
I think that one of the key things I learned about this card and writing about it and thinking about it was that anything you care about, you sometimes feel like this because you worry so much about it. You want it to thrive.
Yeah.
When you say, I use the term caring for this card because, when you care for something, you're full of cares, you're full of troubles, you're full
Yeah.
of worries. I also call it sacred doubt because sometimes you cannot know what's going to happen, and all you can do is try and plan for it. So
Yeah.
that's part of that Mercury quality, that willingness to kind of project ahead and do the best you can to ensure a good outcome using the skills that you have.
Yeah. No, I agree. There's different placements. When you pulled up the Rider-Waite-Smith version of the five, I flashed this one up. This is from a deck called the Forest of Enchantment,
Ooh.
and it's very interesting because we see that there is opportunities that are right there in front, but you get so lost in the
Mhm.
desolation, the despair, the lack of not even seeing what could potentially be there.
Right.
And there's can't really see it very well, but there's like a trail that's leading back to the house that is almost like a sign for them. It's like, look, there's possibilities right there in front of you, but you are just so lost in what's going on. The negativity, you're not seeing everything. You're not seeing the potential. And that's what I take, me
Mhm.
personally, with with the pentacles. It's barren.
Yeah, that's very true. There's a quality of this card of kind of trying to understand who is in and who is out.
Yeah.
That feeling of being isolated or part of a community is very much the feeling of this card, because when you get it, it's generally not the case that you're barefoot in the snow outside a church, right? It's not usually literal, but the feeling might be that you are separated from others, or that you're in the on the outs, that you're not being cared for, or
Mhm.
something like that. And to me, one way of thinking about this that I've found very interesting is to consider the fact that it's Mercury in Taurus, and Mercury and Taurus both have major arcana associated with them, the Magician and the Hierophant. So I think of, the Magician, since he's associated with Mercury, the original thief, as the lock picker, right? And the Hierophant, if you look at his image, actually has keys. He's the keeper of the keys. So you've got the lock picker versus the keeper of the keys. And understanding that relationship tells you a little bit about what the Five of Pentacles is about.
I agree. And it wasn't until I got this book, I associate the major arcana planetary wise, the 10 planets, with the astrological signs. But when I opened up the book and you did this, I was just like, oh, great. Now,
it's fun, isn't it?
yeah, it's like, good. Now I can get some more information.
Right.
I could relate it to the signs and to the planets, Taurus, and, well, the Magician's a planetary card,
Right.
but their influences.
Mhm.
And so that's the other thing I wanted to discuss about is what happens. We have 10 planets in the major arcana, and they're not going to, but there's two signs. It is Scorpio and Pisces that have the double signs, correct?
There's three, actually,
Three, okay.
because we have the Scorpio, we have Pisces, we have, so basically the traditional planets, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon, and then you have Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. So Uranus gets assigned to Aquarius, Neptune gets assigned to Pisces, Pluto gets assigned to Scorpio. So I don't use the modern planets myself because the system doesn't depend on that originally in the Golden Dawn, but some people do. Some people find ways to make that work.
Okay. How about let's just talk very briefly about these 3 planets that aren't recognized.
Outer planets.
Yes. How can we bring those into the decans? Because they have elemental associations.
Yes. I mean, the interesting thing is that they do have a very neat place in the major arcana. A lot of people will consider Uranus to be and Neptune to be the hanged man.
Correct.
And Pluto to be the judgment card, kind of with those elemental cards. So if you wanted to, I suppose you could find a way to assign them to their respective signs, right?
Yes.
But only if it makes you happy.
Fair enough. What Susan's trying to say is that you work with whatever feels best for you. You don't have to be, married, that you have to use the 2 planets with 1 sign. This is me because I want to learn all these different faces and attributes that are assigned to the decan. So if there's more than 1 planetary association, I want to just understand it. I want to get to the meats and potatoes of, their relationship and how they counter each other and how they can work together. So I push myself a little bit more in that respect. But with 36 Secrets, you just put things into a very simple perspective. And so you kind of get me out of that rain. It's like, you're almost like, Amy, you don't need to know those other planets.
Well, you can if you want to. It's just, the thing is that the system is so coherent as it is. And you can look up, if you go in the index, you can look up every decan that's related to a Saturn card, and learn what that's all about. All of the 5 decans and cards that are related to Mercury, and compare them and see how Mercury kind of inflects, how it's different in the 10 of Pentacles and the 6 of Swords from the way it is in the 5 of Pentacles. It's interesting.
Yes. Yeah. When going through this exploration of the decans, I know we spoke briefly about this. There was one particular card that stood out for you. And yes, you can have one particular card out of a whole minor arcana that could just stand out for you. Can you discuss that relationship and what card that was?
I actually don't remember which one I was talking about. You're talking about the 4 of Swords?
It was one of the sword elements, one of the sword minor arcana. I just could not
It was
remember which one
probably the Four of Swords because
because
that's
it kept coming back, I believe.
yeah, yeah, it kept coming up. Well, it's interesting because that was a particularly difficult one to write about because, you know, it has so many wildly different meanings that have come up that decan Libra 3 over
Mhm.
the years, over the centuries, and putting them together was a bit of a puzzle. But one thing I came to learn about that, and another difficult one was the Four of Cups. Something about the fours is
It was that one. It
it was
was
the
the
Four
Four
of
of
Cups.
Cups. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll talk about the Four of Cups then.
Okay. I was
So
going to show the chapter.
sure, yeah, the Four of Cups is one that I think about a lot because
Four of Cups.
it's so ambiguous. You look at it and you're like, is he happy? Is he sad? Is he uncomfortable? Is he, what's going on with him? And people often have a really difficult time understanding what it's supposed to be doing in the reading because it's not obvious. You see the 10 of Swords, you have a feeling about it,
Yeah.
usually.
Yeah, of
You
course.
see the Four of Cups, you're like, I don't know. And I think that one of the things that I've come to realize about that card is that it is about meaning itself, about the idea that I used to call it the quest for meaning, although nowadays I call it the refusal of the call, which is a Jungian concept in the hero's adventure. But you can see that there are concepts in here of you don't know whether he sees the cup, you
Yeah.
don't know whether he's ignoring the cup, you don't know whether he's already had too much to drink. But whatever those questions are, they bring up questions, they bring up the issue of what is enough? You know, what does what do I desire and what do I not desire?
Mhm.
And these are some of the issues that come up with this card. It is the most lunar card in the minor arcana. It is the third decan of Cancer and it's ruled by the moon. So it's this combination of being in the sign of the moon and in the decan ruled by the moon.
Yeah.
And, the moon is changeable. So there's a quality of this card that is always on the turn. It's like that moment you can see that the leaves are drooping because it's high summer and, it's that stagnant moment.
I never thought about that. I never
Yeah.
saw that.
Yeah. And so to me, I also compare this card to the Buddha sitting under the tree and realizing that all suffering comes from desire, right? So when you look at this card, you can ask yourself, is it that I have, that I don't have enough or that I have too much,
Yeah.
or that I am overly wedded to my desires? Why is it that I can't take that cup? Because that cup could very well be the Ace of Cups. It
Yes.
looks like it, doesn't
It
it?
does,
So,
yeah.
I often read it that way. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So yes, so this card has been really a fascinating one for me, and it's really, I don't know, there's something about it that has just haunted me since writing about it. There is, uh, the, um, the original the original sort of Deccan commentaries on Cancer 3 had to do with hunting and brawling, which is not what you see here, right?
Yeah.
But but
Huh.
when you think about it, what is it that, what that characterizes the act of hunting um and contests between people? It's desire. It's the thing that you want, the thing
Yeah.
that you're willing to go for, and all of the feelings and issues and difficulties that arise around that quest.
But the desire, the perspective of the desire is coming from here. It's what's motivating you. This is what's motivating you. It's
Mhm.
those feelings. It's like, I need to have this, but why do I have to have this? Why? That's where this
Right,
comes in.
right.
Um,
And there's something about the way desire gives us meaning in life, but also can take it away,
oh,
right?
yeah.
Both
Oh,
things
yeah.
are possible. Yeah.
Do you feel with the cups, the suit of cups, And I think it's also in relation to the suit of swords. Those particular suits, it's that conflict between the heart and the mind.
Sure, that is definitely a way to look at it. Sure. I often think of, I have a workshop that I offer as a digital download on the elemental stories of tarot, and I always say that the suit of swords, the element of air, the story of air is the story of how we seek knowledge and the price we pay for that, whereas the story of water is one of sacrifice and surrender. So, there is, whether that's love or,
Yeah.
or looking to connect with spirit in a larger way, they are definitely different
Yes.
stories, different ways of going about it, but still related in their own way.
Yeah. Because one way that I do my readings is that I look for what a common denominator that's coming up. Am I seeing a lot of numbers, similar numbers? Am I seeing a lot of similar elements, cups, swords, all these different tools? And I always seem to find when I do these kinds of readings that, especially if it's cups and swords, if the reading is heavily leaned in one of those suits, that there's a conflict going on with for the cups. They're not seeing everything. They're not seeing everything for what it is. You get caught up. And then with the swords we have, you know, using the mind too much. And I feel overall with the tarot, and this is basically what each and every one of us are doing. We're trying to create a balance. We're trying to create the balance of the heart, the mind, the body, the spirit. It is not easy. It
No.
is not easy.
Yes.
And that's why with the astrological decans and the signs and the planetary influences, I can feel I could get a little bit more information that can maybe guide the person that I'm reading for. It's like, you know what, let's focus more on this. I think this is where you're weaker, and this is where I think you could build more strength in because this planetary influence, so on and so forth. If a lot of cups, like you were saying, a lot of surrender, you may need to, because Pisces is a good example. Pisces, you get so drawn in, you need to let go, or you're going to stay in. That's almost the same. That's almost similar to a lot of the two other water signs. You get attached to what's motivating you emotionally, and you have to let go so that you can grow and move on. So with the astrology aspect of the decans, I feel I could just pinpoint and give a little bit more information. I went on a tangent, but sorry. It's just like you get these thoughts. It's like I got to express it right now. And we're Mars and Cancer, right? I think it's Mars and Cancer today or something. But I just feel that. I just feel when looking at all these suits and applying the decans, um, it just it takes you so much into a deeper place with you.
There's always more. There's
Yes,
always more.
and I really would like people to explore that aspect. You don't have to use the astrology, when doing reading interpretations, but you can apply that information to understand these cards a little bit more.
Yes, what I tell people is that, learning the astrological correspondences is like, well, correspondences in generally is like learning your scales if you're a musician.
Yeah.
And you learn them and you kind of internalize them and you do them every day. But when it comes to the reading itself, you kind of let go of it. And that information deeply informs what you're saying, but you're not kind of stopping to do the math all the time.
Yeah.
Because unless you're reading for someone who's like speaks fluent astrology and they want that, which I sometimes do, but most of the time I'm just using the perfume of the information, to do the
I
reading.
follow.
Yeah.
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 I think, and that's a bit of a challenge too, is for someone who who reads more intuitively,
Mm-hmm.
I have now that mind. I have that astrological, scientific, okay, so it's Saturn and Taurus. And I start thinking where the current placement of the signs are at the time that I pull the cards. How can I
Right.
relate that information to this reading? And next thing you know, it's becoming more of an astrology reading than a
Right.
tarot reading. And
Right.
that's a struggle.
It is a struggle. I mean, I think the key for me is, you meet the person where they're at. Whatever the point of a reading is to help somebody.
Yes.
So it's not really so much about what I know or what I've been studying, but answering the question. And I always feel that within the context of the reading, there's a sort of a current set up between the reader and the client where the need of the client for help and the need of the reader to help kind of meet each other, and
Yes.
the information arises in that vacuum. So, I often find that if I get out of my own way, I'll usually find whatever it is that the person needs to know. And if they're not getting it, I sometimes will say, well, is this helpful to you? What do you see in the cards?
Yeah.
What would be helpful for you to know? And usually we can get there that way, rather than me heading back to the books, because that's not where the answers are ultimately.
That's very true. We have to connect. It's not so much about us, it's about who we're reading for. And I like what you were saying. Ask them,
Yeah.
what do you feel about the reading? How do you feel this is relating to you? Is there
I
something
also
missing?
really believe that there is no such thing as a novice reader. I think that, someone's going to pick up, if they pick up a tarot deck and they see, I don't know, like the Seven of Swords, one of my favorites, they're going to have a feeling about that. They're going to see something in there,
Yeah.
and they're going to pick up on something, and that's completely legitimate, arguably more legitimate than what you're telling them, in a sense. Because if they see it, it's important. There is no objective measurement for tarot. It's purely subjective art. And so, the definition of a synchronicity is a meaningful coincidence. The question is, meaningful to who?
Yeah.
So, as long as it has meaning for the person you're trying to help, that's what you focus on. That's what you take. And hopefully, as a reader, you have enough ideas that you throw them all at them and they get what they need out of it.
Yeah. It is creating that balance, and I'm learning that quite a bit when I'm doing my online readings. It's like, okay, and it's funny because I could be in the middle of doing a reading and all of a sudden I feel like something just didn't come out right with these cards, and I don't want to pull other cards because they're quick online readings, but I just follow intuitively. If I get something else that's taking me in a different direction, I'll throw it in because that's obviously something from outside that's telling me, follow through with this.
Yeah.
Don't look at the cards so much. What you're feeling is telling you something different.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and that's the interesting thing too when it comes to this, because you have the astrological assignments, the decans and whatnot,
Yeah,
but
but
your
you never
feelings telling
stop
you,
looking at it, right? You
yeah.
never get away from the image. Sometimes it just means it's snowing. Yeah.
You've never said that to anyone, have you? Hey,
I
it's just
have.
snow.
I
Really?
have. I
Get
totally
out.
have. Yeah, because I get it for snow all the time myself.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. Um, let's take a breather because we've been talking quite a bit. I know some people have been coming in. Thank you for watching, each and every one of you. This is a very wonderful topic for me. I'm very happy to have T. Susan Chang here with us. And if you have questions, please put them in caps. Um, she is ready and able to answer any questions that you have. Um, in the meantime, um, I have to take a minute because it is quite a bit to take in. Um, we're in the Five of Pentacles, which is our first decan for this month of Taurus.
Mhm.
And we were talking earlier about the Five of Discs, Five of Pentacles. We saw the card that was showing of worry and concern, and Susie gave in some different perspectives of this.
Yes, yes, and another thing that you can do, especially with a card that has sort of a jangly or difficult energy, like the Ten of Swords or the Five of Pentacles itself, I often say that you can work with it. You can do sympathetic magic. You can find a way to
Like
fulfill
that.
that card that is maybe better than what it has in mind for you. So one time what I did, and I talked about this a little bit on the astrology podcast, was that, I got the Five of Pentacles, and I had gotten a lot of rather dark meanings of it recently, like I'd been locked out of places, or I
Um,
couldn't find my car, kind of a thing. So I was determined that I was going to work with it in a sort of proactive way. And
yes.
it happened that our house at the time, it had a broken lock on the front door, which nobody uses because it's really our side door of our house that gets the normal use. But it had a broken sort of one of those slide bolt locks.
Yeah.
And so I got my husband's tools and I fixed it. And and to me that was very much within the ambit of the card's meaning, right? Because we talked about locks and keys, being locked out, being inside or outside,
Yes.
worrying about things, anticipating what might go wrong. So I will do something like that. It's a form of magic for me, and I will say the requirements have been fulfilled.
You're doing as much as you can,
Yes.
right?
Yes. And then, you feel really good about it.
Yeah.
You feel like I worked with the card. We have a relationship. We understand each other. And hopefully it'll give me a break. The other thing I do all the time is I crawl down the stairs head first when I get the tower. But I don't really recommend that. It's a little dangerous.
Yeah, you gotta be wary with some of these signs that come up. It's like, wait a second, wait a second. Um, okay, so we touched upon for people who are joining in. I'm just going to recap a little bit. We talked about doing some exercises. Very well, a exercise that Susie recommended when working and getting familiar with the decans in the minor arcana is just, she just said it, a card a day. Just pull out that card for the day and just connect with this. Just work with the astrological properties, how it can influence you. Um, keep a journal. Keep a journal. And watch for patterns, especially when there's 3 decans for each astrological month. Choose whatever cards and relate it to whatever that decan is the time that you pulled the card. So if you're in 20 to 30 degrees, which is the third week, let's just stick to Taurus, third week of Taurus, and you pull that Seven of Pentacles, write it down, write down its meaning, its planetary influence, and see how that week goes for you. And when I do the decan readings on YouTube, I tell people to use that as a guide or as a sign of awareness, something that you may need to be just extra careful about during that particular decan week, if it leans in that direction. Um, and another thing that I do, I mentioned earlier, is I try, and again, this is me getting into my head, I associate the current decan with, or I'm sorry, I associate the decan or Five of Pentacles, and I look at the placement of the current planets. So wherever Mars is in, Venus, so on and so forth. And I look at those planetary placements and see if they can actually influence towards a way for that decan. So I use the powers of what's going on in the universe with those placements and use it as a guide for those cards. That's if you really want to get into it. That's just for me, just to get a little bit more information to see how that week could go. So, but you keep your practice very simple. right, Susan?
I
You just
do. I do. I mean, I feel like, the thing about card of the day, which I think is so great, is that it gives you a jumping off point for the day. It also gives you a conversation for when you're having moments of doubt or difficulty or uncertainty, which we all do multiple times a day. Me 6 to 8 times, maybe 12. I don't know.
oh dear.
There's moments where you're just like kind of, or you're just sort of sitting there buffering, and you just don't really know what you're doing. And you take your card and you sort of think about it and say, well, how does that bear on my situation right now? So you can do like multiple mini readings off this one card or two cards. I draw
Yeah.
two over the course of the day. And, and it's like having it's like having your best friend, your best self as a friend there to talk to you and give you an idea, give you a clue as to
Yes.
what's not necessarily coming, but what you can do about it. So I think it's good because it forces you to be. I often think that with card of the day, you both look to see what will happen. If it forecasts or predicts what will happen, but also what you can do about it. I think
Yes.
both are really important because we aren't just receiving information, we're creating it at the same time. And so that's
Absolutely.
that's the great magic of tarot. It's not just about what it can tell you, but the ways that you can use this language to converse and persuade and argue and talk back.
It's the tarot deck is almost the tarot is like an unconditional friend in a sense. It'll it'll speak in volumes. It'll let you know how it really feels, but at the same time, you're not having that relationship. You're not well, you could be sleeping with the tarot deck, but it's just in that sense. You start
Yes.
building a relationship. People have different relationships with their decks, different decks. They have one that's more um, you know, more challenging. Then there's one that's more soft. I have the Dreams of Gaia tarot, and to me, that's like a mother deck.
Mhm.
It's a very nurturing deck, and I go to it for times where I just need some soothing.
So
But
I'm going to answer this very good question
please,
that John T. placed.
yes,
People were having trouble getting a copy of Tarot Deciphered. This had to do with Amazon fulfillment. They because of coronavirus, a number of sort of issues have come up, not with just this book, but lots of books where once it's released by the publisher, that doesn't necessarily mean that the copies are in stock at Amazon. So there was an issue for a couple of weeks where people were really having trouble getting inventory of Tarot
wow,
Deciphered out. It is available now. It's also always available from our publisher, who is Llewellyn. So if you go to llewellyn.com, and if you don't know how to spell that, I do not blame you. It has 4 L's. Just put all the L's you possibly can in that word, and you will get to their shop, and you'll always be able to order it from them. But yes, that should be solved by now.
okay. How long of a delay was there?
There was a couple weeks delay.
Oh
Yeah,
crap.
it was really annoying, but now people can get it.
Okay, okay. So buy the copy. Buy it now. I put links to Susie's website, the Fortunes podcast, so you can follow up with her in that sense. She's offering courses. Um, she has a lot going on,
There's a lot
which
going
is wonderful. I'm going to post another comment here. Thank you, John, for asking. Thank you. Um, here's Mindy.
Oh, good. You're listening to the new series. Yes, I've been wanting to do this element series for a really long time. So we released the fire episode a week and a half ago, and on Monday I'm going to edit the water one, and that will be out.
Okay.
And so yes, we will be going completely through all 4, and then who knows what's next? We haven't decided yet. But
So,
but I really love that because last year I did a really deep dive into elements in the tarot, and that for Elemental Stories of Tarot workshop that I mentioned before, that's on my website. was the result of that. It was something I did for the Northwest Tarot Symposium that kind of ate several months of my life because I was so fascinated by it. But looking at the different ways that water and fire and air and earth tell each their own story through tarot, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful.
I think that's another book right there.
It might be.
There's so many ways you can go with those elements, and I love infusing the elements with the tarot. It's a beautiful combination to work with.
Yes.
I have another comment. There we go.
Yes, shadow decans. Yes. So, what is a shadow decan? A shadow decan is has to do with court cards. So, court cards, which are not covered in 36 Secrets, but which I may write a book on someday, each have their own sort of correspondence system, and it's a little complicated because the princess or page cards are different. They're kind of set aside with their own correspondences. But if you take Rider Waite, Knight, Queen, and King, then you have each of those has 3 decans. And the way that works is that rather than each being assigned to a whole sign, you have 2 decans from one sign and 1 decan from the previous sign. So, for example, I don't know, let's talk about the Queen of Swords, who is my favorite. So she has 3 decans, like all courts, like all of those 12 courts, of which are the first and second decans of Libra, but also the previous decan from Virgo. So the 10 of Pentacles in Virgo, and Virgo 3, Libra 1, Libra 2. The shadow decan is the one from the previous sign. That's what it's called. And so people say that the shadow decan, the Golden Dawn like to say that the shadow decan was a point of weakness for the court cards. So they would say that the Queen of Swords was in some way overly acquisitive or too concerned with materiality. I don't like that particular interpretation. I use shadow decans in a way that's a little more psychological. I tend to think of shadow decans as providing a motivation for the court card, for kind of like a place that they know overly well, like the South Node in astrology, for example. So when I think about the 10 of Pentacles and the 2 of Swords and the 3 of Swords, as regards the Queen of Swords story, it's really interesting because she is historically a wealthy widow, right? She is a person, and you can see in that, the legal judgment. You can see the legal judgment in terms of her estate in the 2 of Swords that she received, the heartbreak of the loss in the 3 of Swords, and the money she got from it in the 10 of Pentacles. So, there's a coherent story inside there, which you can do with a lot of the court cards. It's just interesting. But shadow decans, I find, are interesting to think about, but I tend not to be overly prescriptive about them. I just view them as another component of that court card's personality.
So you see them entirely separate from the minor arcana in regards to the relationship, or?
Well, the court cards, it's as if there are 3 minor arcana in every court card.
Okay.
That's how I would put it.
Okay. So for page, I'm sorry, I'm trying to visualize page, knight, queen, king. Each of those will have 3 minor arcana.
Knight, queen, and king. Page is different. Page is
or ace.
Its own thing. Pages are like aces. They're like their own system.
Okay, so knight, queen, king. So those 3 court cards, each are
have
assigned.
3 decans. Yeah.
Okay.
So 12 court cards, 3 decans, 36 again.
Okay. Remember that, everyone. It's pretty easy. It's pretty easy. You just gotta break it down. Justin, thank you for asking. I have one other question. I cannot pronounce the name. I think it could be Welsh.
Yes, in my online course, I do encourage people to build their own correspondences. So this is the living tarot. And if you make up your own for the major arcana, can you still work with 36 secrets, Chaldean decans? This is what I think. The material in 36 secrets is what I got out of it. It's like, my ruminations and thoughts and things that were sort of based on reflecting on the astrological information. But that is just, I believe that kind of qualitative material is there for exploration for everybody, regardless of whether you use that system or not.
Mm.
Because I think that ultimately the astrological reasoning that led to that is somewhat arbitrary. It's just
Mm.
a system. You can, and I think that if you use a different system, you might come to the same conclusions without necessarily having used the same data to begin with. So, I think that and there's also flex in the system for subjective interpretation. So whatever, my nine of swords is not going to be the same as your nine of swords, and that's okay. It's good. Borrow some of my stuff, use other people's stuff, whatever works for you. And and I think what we find is that the more you add into that sort of sphere of meanings that goes into each card, the less likely it is that you will be in a reading and just come up dry, because you've been exposed to so much and so many ideas that it will bubble up in the moment as you need to. So, I consider the art of interpretation very much an additive process, as you can see, as opposed to subtractive process. I just take everything, and then hopefully in the oracular moment, the right thing comes up.
That's wonderful. So you take a wide perspective.
The widest.
Yeah,
Pisces rising.
yeah. And I'm just the opposite. I'm the one that's just like, no, let's just hone down and just do this. And I remember just to kind of deviate, when I
Mhm.
was starting yoga classes, my instructors are like, be more organic, let it go, let
Yeah,
it
I'm a
go.
great believer in what I call archetypal drift. And, it's sort of like in the sense that, for example, everyone knows that if you have your Saturn return, you can experience that in a really harsh, difficult way or in a constructive way. And I think that has to do with archetypal drift.
Yeah,
You get to sort of negotiate the quality of the thing you're dealing with.
yeah. I was just like, oh my God. It's just like, wow. And I see it, but I think I'm applying that kind of uh, astringent nature. Is it just comes from my background, from what I was doing beforehand. I used to do production work.
Yeah, it
Everything had
has
to
to be in
be,
its place.
you know, and I don't take that perspective so much with the tarot, because with the tarot, nothing can ever be in its place, because it's always changing.
It's literally mercurial.
It, that's your key word. I love that. It's just like flow.
Yeah.
Um, And especially when I get to a deck like this, that's why probably I'm just jonesing so hard over this, because it's getting this.
Mhm. Mhm.
And, but then there are times that I love to have a deck that's just easy. There's no symbols. There's just a tree and a bear or something. It's like, okay, I could just read it like it is right there, and
Mhm.
I can, move on with the reading, so on and so forth. Um, Let's talk just very briefly. I want to plug your online courses. Um, you
Yeah.
have you have one online course, or is it a series of different courses?
Essentially one main online course. It's called the Living Tarot, and it is offered through my website, tsusanchang.com. And it's not a correspondence-based course, really. It's more about getting you up and running as fast as possible. Because I believe, I've mentioned before that, I believe that everything in life is in tarot, and that one of the ways you can learn to read tarot is by sort of asking yourself the question, okay, well, this thing happened in my life. What does this look like in tarot? Which I call doing tarot backwards. So, this is an 8 module sort of course that takes you bit by bit through building that language with your deck. There are correspondences in some of the optional modules, but you don't have to use correspondences of the Golden Dawn. You make up your own. You make up your own keywords. You make up your own sort of like what does this card mean to me? I give examples from real life and say, okay, what would this be like in tarot? So, you kind of work through that bit by bit in a systematic way until you have a language of your own that you can really, really
Yeah.
consider your own. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no right or wrong.
There's no right or wrong. And then there's online courses. I'm going to be theoretically offering one through the Blackthorn School, which is an online sort of collection of esoteric courses offered by seasoned practitioners. So I should be doing that in the summer after I write the curriculum. So
It's called Blackthorn?
Blackthorn with an E on the end. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Black. Give me a minute, everyone. I got to write this down. Blackthorn. Okay.
Right.
All righty. I just lost my train of thought. Sorry. We have another question here.
Okay. Oh, yes, right. Okay, so the anecdote of trying to do a spell with the magician and the hierophant, but I didn't push through with it. So, yes, so this is what happened when I was at Newt's Northwest Tarot Symposium. There was a wonderful, wonderful workshop by Madame Pamita.
Yes.
You know her? Yeah, she does sort of hoodoo-based card spell practices. And
Yeah.
you alter cards and you sew them together and you put materia inside them. It's so much fun. So I thought, I'm going to do a card packet that has the magician on one side and the hierophant on the other. It's going to be great. And because I really love those two ideas. And I was wanting to sort of like build an ancestral practice, and the hierophant sort of had something to do with that. So I started, I went through all this stuff. I got all these herbs and oils and I put them in the middle and I painstakingly sewed them together and punched holes in the edges. And then I was thinking, wait a second, magician and hierophant, why is that so familiar? And I thought, that adds up to the Five of Pentacles. Do I really want to, invite the Five of Pentacles into my life? And at the time, I did not. So I dismantled, I killed the spell, I dismantled it, and I threw it out. But today I might do it. Today I might do it because I have a much broader understanding of the Five of Pentacles than I did at that time. And one of the meanings that's very rich for me with that card is the idea of magic itself, ritual magic, which, magic from the magician and ritual from the hierophant.
Yeah.
And if you put them together, you do get something really powerful. So I would consider doing it again.
You wrote here, what's the difference between ritual, magic, and religion?
Yeah, good question.
2 minutes. 2 minutes, you can do it.
I put it out there as a question because I did not want to answer it.
Okay. I read that before going to sleep. And I was just like,
it just makes your mind go, oh my God.
No, I just shut it off. It's like, no, I can't do this right now. That is just too much before I go to sleep,
Yeah.
But it stood out, it's like, it's interesting reading the book, Susie, because I go between Susie and Susan, sorry. It's interesting reading the book because you put in so much different perspectives. It's like, she needs to write a book about this to clarify it and to go more into it. I mean, and this leads me into just asking you, where do you see your practice going? Not predictively, but where do you feel it's going? Do you feel like you want to make this, till the day you die, or?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And this is new for me in a sense because, I've been a career switcher for decades. My first career was in publishing and my second career was in food. And, this is my third career. And this is the one I actually can't imagine stopping.
Yeah.
So, and as far as my tarot praxis goes, it's definitely moving and changing. The sort of bleeding edge of my praxis is magic right now. I have been sort of studying different schools. I'm in the middle of taking this fascinating Greek magical papyri course, and just trying to get a sense of what implications that might have for tarot. I've talked a little bit about doing sympathetic and talismanic magic with tarot, but I'd really like to do a great deal more with that. And so I was excited to see that in the comments we have, someone here who is saying, I actually do a lot of tarot magic, which I think is fantastic. I think that, there are centuries of image magic that we can draw on those traditions and translate them into tarot terms, because we have the images right here. They're just like sitting here waiting to be used. So,
Yes.
let's use them.
This could probably be the next, I don't want to say next generation, but we had the Golden Dawn, which had its own magic association, so on and so forth. And eventually we got the different variations of the tarot, the Doth, and then Smith going on with the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. Maybe this could be a new generation, or not generation, I can't think of the word, but maybe a new realm. And this is something that I've been wondering about, is where is the direction of tarot going? Because we're pulling all our resources from traditional resources. And slowly, you've probably seen this already, people are creating their own interpretations, the non-system decks, where there's no RWS, there's no Doth, it's just their own perspective, Tarot of the Holy Light. Where do you see that tarot could be moving towards?
Yeah, I tend to avoid prognosticating on that, because I sort of believe that it will go where it needs to go. I think tarot is such a subjective journey for everyone that the only thing I hope for tarot is that more people engage with it. That's the only thing, because I think it makes people's lives better. But one of my personal practice, I have a thing for the Wheel of Fortune. I have 10 of them on my wall here. And the thing about that is that, I consider myself to be in conversation with fate, with fortune, but also to always remember that it has its own larger pattern, its own larger agenda, that, that I do not try to steer.
Yeah.
So, I think also that in terms of trends, for example, in astrology, you can definitely say that there are particular trends going on right now. There's a great deal of translation and historical scholarship going on. That's not something you can dispute. I don't know if I could say that about tarot, other than to say that there's a great deal, an increasing proliferation of decks out there, which I think is a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
I think it's absolutely wonderful. Yes, and there is a revival of pre-Golden Dawn decks and Marseille-based decks, which are wonderful. I have one called the Marshmallow Marseille, which is all in pastel colors. I love it. And I just think we are perhaps what history will say, because history gets to determine this, we don't. But what history will say in 50 years is that there was a renaissance of tarot artistry happening in the 2020s.
Yeah.
So, which I think would be great.
Well, everything does go in a cycle, obviously.
Yeah.
I think it's 50-year cycles, like 70s, we're, kind of moving from that influence with the old style of tarot, and now possibly set the ground. I agree with what you just said. For the next 50 years, the next generation that's going to see this, what they're going to do. And I always keep thinking, when I come across conversations on Reddit or on YouTube, underground societies, secret societies that are up there, are we going to get something that's going to come up to the equivalent of the Golden Dawn? These different types of practices. Yeah, we don't know. We'll probably never know.
I mean, I actually think it's better if we live in a society where these things don't have to be so secret.
Yeah.
Or I think Chris Brennan once said that, we're kind of in a ideal place with the esoteric arts in this century, in the sense that people don't take it, they kind of tolerate it without taking it seriously, which means that we don't get persecuted, and people are free to free to sort of explore in a lower stakes way. So
Yeah.
that seems fine to me.
We're in a different mind state too, you know,
Yeah.
different perspective, everything that's happened in the last 20, 30 years. You know, everything is changing. And it's interesting to see the generation that's before us, but you know, um, the millennials, and just seeing their energy and their enthusiasm, but also, bless you,
A
bless you.
little bit allergic in this Taurus one decade. Always am.
I'm sorry. You okay?
Fine.
Okay. And I like seeing that generation, the millennials, just exploring. They're very expressive, but they're also trying to understand. They are in the middle, you know, they
Mm-hmm.
are in the middle, and they're trying to, you know, make sense of everything that's going on. So I I love listening to the different perspectives of all age groups, but then there's some that I feel like maybe maybe if you just listen and not think so much and listen to what we have to say. Some of our elders, I'm not saying we're old, but
I can tell
Gen
you, I
Xers.
certainly didn't listen when I was that age.
But at some point when they're trying to get to, yeah, when you're young, of course you're not going to listen, but at a certain point where you're trying to get answers, people like us who have experience, we have something to share, you know, and you're sharing it through your knowledge with the book. You're sharing your personal
Well,
experiences.
one thing I think that is really wonderful about the moment we're in is that information is so available, you
Hmm.
know, whether it's podcasts or books or YouTube or whatever, you want to learn about something, you can do it. There is nothing stopping you. I mean, I just remember, we're of a different generation and going to school and not even having a computer and having to just like look things up in indexes and paper books in the library and never finding what you want. You know? No Google, no
Really?
nothing. Yes.
Oh my God. It's yeah. We're teachers, we're students. We're constantly learning. That's so funny what you just said. Um, but it's just, yeah, it's how we perceive things. I just feel as I'm getting older, I think I'm starting to close in a little bit. I'm trying to be open, which I was, but now I think as I'm getting older, I'm starting to contract a little bit more. And
Mhm.
that could be a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing because then I'm not being fully open to everything else. I'm trying, but I feel at the same time we should have, borders, limits as to, you know, um, you know, what we want to accept and hear and so on and so forth. So I
Mhm.
don't mean to insult anyone with what I just said. This is my opinion. It's a generational opinion. But yeah, it's it's all good. It's all good. Um, does anyone else have any questions? Um, I like to keep this going, but at the same time, oh, I'm sorry. There's something here that Lady Capera. I like this. I'm just gonna put this comment here.
Oh, that's very nice.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, we respect that, so that's why we're not saying anything. We get it. Um, let me see
100%.
here. Ageist. Okay. I'm not going to post that, Lady Capera. I want to keep it tarot and astrology oriented. Um, so, if there's no other questions, I think we'll start winding it down. And just to update, you have your online courses. You are in the process, you said, with the Blackthorn to start the curriculum for that.
Yes, and I also have a workshop that's coming up virtually through a shop in New Bedford called Sanctum Folklorica, a wonderful little magic shop, next weekend. And that's posted on my Facebook feed, on my Twitter at T Susan Chang, on Instagram, everywhere. So if you would like to sign up for that, that's available too. There's an intro version and an intermediate one where I teach correspondence
Okay,
techniques. Yep.
excellent, excellent. So, everyone, thank you so much for joining, listening, watching. laughing, raising your fist, whatever. um, I appreciate this. It was very free form. If you saw me looking down, as I have little notes, I was writing some notes as Susan was speaking for my own reference. Her current book is Tarot Deciphered, and it is now available. Thank you. I think it was Dustin Dawes. I'm not certain who made mention that there was a difficulty, but it is now widely available.
Yes, be available
Um,
everywhere.
Excellent. And today we were talking, sort of, go on tangents, it's okay. 36 Secrets, a
I
Decan
really love this book, and I hope you all get it because it
Yes,
is everything I have to say about the minor arcana, which are my favorite, and it's a super personal book. So I
it
think it's
is.
I think it's got a way in for everyone, whether you are an advanced so-called practitioner or you've just started yesterday. I don't really believe in novice versus advanced, as I said, but whether you're new to tarot or you've been doing it forever, I feel that this book will have something for you.
Yes, yes. And it's broken down very simple, and that's why when I was talking to Susan, I wanted to keep the conversation very basic. It seemed like there's some people here who already are practicing the Decan, so they know a little bit more. What you mentioned about shadow Decan is something new to me. I've never heard that before, in all honesty. I haven't heard that reference. So that's something for me to work on. And I hope you write a book about that. You
I
know?
hope I do too. I would love to write a book on the courts once I know what I want to say.
Yeah, yeah. No rush. 2022. We're throwing something in. Any last words you can think of?
Gosh, how morbid.
No, sweetheart. No. Any
No, just
first words?
everybody, draw a card a day, love your tarot, live your tarot, practice your tarot. It's a lifelong journey. Don't ever give it up.
No, I agree 100%. If it works with you, works for you and with you, stick with it because there's a reason why. There's a reason why you're feeling that connection to any form of divinatory practice. Explore it, follow through with it, see how far it takes you. Don't feel because everyone else is doing tarot that you have to do it. You work with it because you want to be authentic to who you are and how you connect to all these different practices. So find what works best for you. There's a plethora of sources that you can go through. So just discover, be open-hearted, be open-minded. Questions are good, but don't ask too many questions. You have to just accept with what you find. I think that's very important. And experience. This is all what a spiritual practice is. It's all based on experience. All right, everyone,
Thank
thank
you
you so
so
much.
much. It's been a real joy to be here.
Thank
And
you.
thanks all of you.
And I will be back next week. I have Mystic Moon Mondays where I'm going to talk about the moon energy. We have full moon in Scorpio. Yes. And I talk a little bit about the relationships of the moon phases, the signs that the moon is in, how it influences on every 2.5 day basis, and also related to the tarot. So there's a lot to explore with that. So join me on Monday for that. That's usually around 6:30. I do that twice a month, Mystic Moon Mondays. All right, everyone, have a wonderful weekend. Happy belated Earth Day. Happy spring, Taurus month. Go out, harness that energy, and be the best that you can be. Thank you, everyone.